Hi, in this video, we will see about PERN stack. The PERN stack comprises of Postgres, which is a relational database, and Express.js, which is used to write scripting in nodejs, and React, which is for front end, and nodejs, which acts as a server. In this video, we will see about the part 1 of this series. So here in this video, we will learn how to create nodejs server and create sequence and table in Postgres, create REST endpoints using nodejs, and perform CRUD operations in Postgres database. So for this, we will create an employee management system. We will create 3 tables, and I will be discussing about the table shortly. And also we will test this REST endpoint using Postman, and we will learn about what is cross-origin resource sharing, which is CORS, and implement it in REST endpoint. And we will also discuss about the Swagger and auto-generating Swagger documentation, and we will test the REST endpoint which we have created with the Swagger UI. So we have a lot to cover in this video. We will start. The prerequisite for this video are you need to have Postgres installed in your system. If you don't have Postgres installed in your system, just refer to my video tutorial on how to install Postgres in Windows 10. The link of which is in the description. Same way, you need to have Postman to test the REST endpoint which you have created. The installation is pretty simple. And here in this video, I am using Visual Studio Code. You can use any IDE of your choice. I personally find Visual Studio Code has lot of plugins. So I am lean towards Visual Studio Code. And then you need to have Node installed. So if you have this prerequisite in your system, you are good to follow along with me in this course. First, we will create these 3 tables. One is employee table. In the employee table, we will have 7 fields. Here, ID is the primary key, name is the name of the employee, and date of joining is the date of joining of the employee, and designation, gender, email, and bio. These are the employee details, and we will also create another table called as team. Here in this team, we will have ID, name, email, and description. So here we will also create another table which is employee assignment. So here this table is used to keep track of the employee who are assigned to which team. Here we will have 3 fields in this table, and these fields are ID, which is a primary key, team ID is a foreign key which we are getting from the team table, and employee ID, which is a foreign key. We are referring the employee ID for this key. We will see how to create these tables in Postgres. So if you have already installed Postgres, and then if you have pgadmin installed with that, then you are good to go ahead and follow along with me in this. If not, just install pgadmin using stack. So search pgadmin. Have the pgadmin open now. Log into the database server. So here I am using the default username Postgres, and I am logging to the system with the password which I have created during the installation. So here I logged into this pgadmin, and now we have opened the pgadmin and we have logged into the PostgreSQL database. Now in this database we will create the sequence first. The sequence is a user-defined schema bound object that generates a sequence of numeric values. Here we will use this sequence to generate the primary key value for these 3 tables which we are going to create. So for this, first I will create 3 sequences. First I will create the sequence for the employee table. To do that, right click on the database and select query tool. Here this will create this query tool. Here in this query tool you can create the sequence. The syntax to create the sequence is create sequence and followed by the sequence name. Here I am naming it as employee sequence. So employee SEQ, and then I am incrementing each value with 1. So here the increment is 1 and the value starts from 1. So here this increment, you can have any values. If you want to increment the ID by 5, you can give it as 5. If you want to increment by any value, you can give it here. So I want increment by 1, so I am giving it as 1 and I am starting from 1. I have written code to create the employee sequence. Likewise, you can create 3 sequence. Now I will create the sequence for team sequence, and then I will create another sequence for employee assignment. Now we have created 3 sequence. If you refresh here, you can able to see the 3 sequence got created. Now we will create the tables. Create table employee, and we will have 7 fields. First we will start with the field ID. Here ID, and it is of integer data type, so I am giving it as integer, and this cannot be null, so I am also marking it as not null. And this we need to get from the employee sequence which we have created, so this is given by next val open brace and the sequence name here, so employee underscore sequence. And here we will create another field which is name, and it is of type varchar. So varchar is used to store the string data type. Here I am mentioning the length of the varchar as 50, and this is also not null. So if you try to create an entry into this table with a null name, it won't execute. And then we will create another field which is date of joining, and it is of data type timestamp. Timestamp is used to store the date and time, so this is also not null. Here I am creating another field which is designation, which is of type string, so I am mentioning it as varchar, and I am specifying the max length as 25. Here I am creating another field gender, and I am specifying the maximum length as 10 for this varchar. And then email, which is also of type varchar, and I am specifying 50 as the maximum length for this varchar. And then I am creating bio, which is varchar, and I am specifying the maximum length as 500. Now we have specified all the 7 fields. Now we can define our constraint in this table. To define the constraint in the table, we need to use the keyword constraint followed by the constraint name. For this I am creating employee underscore constraint CONS, and then I am declaring the ID as primary key. So primary key, in the bracket I am mentioning ID as a primary key. Yep. We have written the query to create the employee table. The same way we will create the query to the team table. Create table team, and here ID is the primary key. ID is of type integer and it is not null, and we are getting this from team sequence, team underscore sequence, and the next field is email varchar. The maximum length is 50 and this can be null, and then we will have the description, which is varchar maximum length is 500. And also we will create another field which is name, varchar 50, and this is not null. Now we have created 3 fields for the table team. Now we will specify the constraint for this table team. Constraint team underscore CONS, and primary key is ID. Now we have written the query to create team table, employee assignment table. So create table employee assignment id integer not null. Next val employee underscore assignment comma, and the next field is employee id integer and it is not null, and team id integer not null. Here we need to define three constraints for this table. One is a primary key. Here id is the primary key, and employee id is the foreign key which we are deriving from the employee id, and team id is the foreign key which we are deriving from the table team and from the field id. So first we will define the primary key. So constraint employee assignment constraint primary key, and here we will mention id as the primary key, and here we will define the constraint for the foreign key. Constraint foreign key employee foreign key employee underscore id, and the references employee id, and I will copy and paste it again, and I will change this to team and foreign key team, and this is team id. And one more thing which we have missed is not null, and we need to mention default here because we are saying the default value as next val. So here I will copy this, and then here I will copy this value as well. Now we have created the query to create three tables. First I will execute the employee. Yeah, we have created the employee table. Next we will create the team table, and then we will create the employee assignment table. We need to make sure we have a error here, so I will re-execute it again. Now we have successfully created the three tables. In this case, first we need to create employee and team table because this employee assignment has foreign key references to these two tables. So first we need to create these tables before creating the employee assignment. Just make sure your order is correct. Now we will refresh this and we can see the three tables got created. And we can see the columns ID, name, date of joining, designation, gender, email and bio, and then here we have created columns such as ID, employee ID and team ID for employee assignment table, and for team we have created the columns ID, name, email and description. So we have created sequence for these three tables, and we have created three tables for performing CRUD operation using our REST endpoint. Next we will see what are all the different endpoints we are going to create with nodejs. So this is how our relation looks now. I believe now this table looks more sense to you because we have created this table, and here the team ID and employee ID are the foreign key references. We will see more about these foreign key references when we are creating our REST endpoints. Now first we will create the endpoints for create. So first we will create employee. So this create employee is a post operation which takes name, email, gender, date of joining, designation and bio as a JSON, and it creates an entry in the employee table. Likewise we will create another endpoint which is also a post. here this will take 3 values. One is name, email and description, and as a JSON structure, and it stores it into the team table. And next we will create an employee assignment. Here in this employee assignment looks like this. For example, if you want to add 2 employees 1 and 2 to the team 1, that is, let's take the team 1 is JavaScript and then we have 2 employees. Let's take you need to add these 2 developers to the team JavaScript. Then we will have 2 entries in the table employee assignment for the team ID 1. So if you query the employee assignment table for the team ID 1, then we will have the number of employees who are assigned to this table. Similarly, if you query the employee ID, we can see the number of teams he is associated with. By this way, we can store the employee assignment in a relational database. Next, we will create read endpoints. So first, read all the employees, which is used to read all the employees in the database. And second, get all the teams, which is used to get all the teams in the database. And third is get employee. It is used to fetch the particular employee. And here one key thing to note here is we will also get the teams in which he is associated with. We will see how to do when we are writing our code. And similarly, we will have another get endpoint, which is get team. When you get the get team, we will also get the associated employee to this team. The update function is used to update the existing value which is already available in the database. For this, I am using put. So I will create an endpoint for updating the employee and for updating the team. And the last is delete. Here we will create 3 endpoints. Now we will go and create our REST endpoints using nodejs. We will create a new folder named employee management here. Employee management _management, and here for this part 1 we will create a folder named service which holds the service, and then here we will open the command prompt. Just type cmd in the address bar, you will get the command prompt opened in this particular folder. First we will use npm init to create package.json file which is used to keep track and manage our project dependencies and some metadata. We will execute this npm init command. First we will name it as employee service. By default it will take the folder name. So here employee management service, and version I am fine with 1.0.0, then so I am clicking enter, and description is employee management service, and the entry point is index.js, and the test command as of now I am leaving it as empty. So git repository I am leaving it as empty for now. The keywords is nodejs, Swagger and Express and Postgres. Author. Now we have our package.json file created in this file location. Now we will open the Visual Studio Code in this particular location. To open Visual Studio Code from command prompt, enter the command code and dot. So this will open this particular folder in Visual Studio Code. Now we have created this package.json file with this npm init, and here we will go through whatever we have done. So it stores the metadata, and it also stores the script to test, run and build our service, and then it also has the keywords and author and license details. Here whenever we are trying to add dependencies, those also will get added here. We will see that now. First we will open the terminal here, new terminal. We have opened terminal here. Now we will install the dependencies for this project. npm, we can give install or I, both serve the same purpose. And then here I need to install CORS, which is cross origin resource sharing. We will see more about this later in this video, and then we will install express space express, and then we will install PG. So this express is the scripting tool which we'll use to script server in nodejs, and PG is the client tool to connect to the Postgres database. And then here one key thing to note is we need to give -s or -save. Both serve the same purpose. So if you give -save, that means it will save this dependencies to our package.json. Now I will press enter. Now we can see our dependencies getting installed, and we can also see it modifies our package.json file. Now if you see in our package.json file, we have these 3 dependencies created in the package.json. Now we are fine, perfect. Now we will go ahead and create another important utility, which is touch CLI. So if you are familiar with touch in Linux, try installing this touch CLI. It will be very useful to create file from the command prompt. To create something globally, you need to create like this: npm install and touch -CLI, here -g. -g stands for global install. So now click enter. Now we have installed touch CLI. So if you enter this command touch, I will create a file named touch index.js. So I have created an index.js file. So this acts as our entry point to our service. So first I will import all the required dependencies. Constant express equal to record express constant app equal to express. We will initialize this express and assign it to the app variable, and then we will create the base server. To create the base server, we need to listen in some port, and for this we will use the app.listen function. So app.listen function takes 2 parameters. One is the port in which we need to listen. So here I am using 3000. You can use any port as you wish, and then a callback function. So here I am creating an anonymous function, and I am just printing the console.log server listening in port 3000. Now we have created our base node server using express.js. So now to run this code, use the command node index. Now if you see, our application is running in the port 3000 and it started successfully. Now to stop this, enter the command Ctrl+C. We will create another file named db.js. So this holds a connection link between our application and the Postgres, and it also stores all the configuration related details for our Postgres. So touch db.js. So we have created db.js constant pool. We will create a variable named pool, and then here we will import the package pg whichever we have installed, pg, and we will call the pool. And now we will declare our configuration details. So for that, constant pool equal to new pool. This takes the JSON, and here we need to enter our following details, that such as user, and I am using the default user which is Postgres, and we need to mention our password. My password is pass12345, and host. For now I am using local host, and then port is 5432. This you have seen while installing your Postgres. So here port is 5432, and then the database is Postgres. Now we have created the configuration details. Now we need to export this. So for that I will use the command module.exports equal to pool. Now we have created our configuration to connect to the Postgres database whichever we have created. So with this configuration details, we can connect to our tables from this nodejs server. Now, so to import this db.js to our index.js, constant pool equal to require. Here we need to give the relational path, so it is found in the same directory. So I am just giving .db. Now whenever we have a REST endpoint, that endpoint receives a JSON in case of post or put. So here we need to facilitate this service to receive those JSON file. So for that I will use app.use and here express.json. So this is to get the request. Now to run this, use the command node index. Okay. Now we will create our first endpoint, which is creating employee data. So for that I will use the post operation app.post. So here I am taking the route /employee. Here we will declare async function. Async function executes asynchronously. So I will mark this function as async, and it takes two parameters. One is request and response, and then we will create this anonymous function. So I will try to wrap this inside a try and catch block, so that if something fails, we can able to catch that and we can throw in the response. First I will create handling the error response. For that I will give it as response.status. So in case if there is some error, I will mark it as 500.json. This JSON I will send this error. Now we have written our base structure for this post operation. We will use ES6 destructuring. So this is a easy way to destructure the JSON. So I will destructure the request body. So in the request body we will have name, and then we will have the date of joining, and then we will have designation, and then we will have gender, and then we will have email, and then we will have bio. So this fields we are getting from the JSON request.body. So request.body. This is equivalent to writing constant name equal to request.body.name. So this line, whichever we wrote in the line number 9, is just a syntactical sugar. In a single line we can destructure all the fields. So here we will remove the line number 10. Now just I will print the request body. Now we have created a very simple post endpoint which does the destructuring part, also printing the request.body. Now if you have noticed here, whenever we are doing some modification, that won't be reflected. Here if we try to execute this code, only the old code will be there. So whatever the code changes which you have done won't be hot swapped. So for doing that we need to install nodemon. So if we don't have nodemon already installed, so this is the way to install nodemon. npm I nodemon and then -g. As we have already seen with touchcli, -g is to install a package globally. Now nodemon is getting installed. Once we have installed the nodemon, we will try to execute this index.js with nodemon, which does hot swap. Now we have started the index.js in node1. Now if we do some changes, let's do some change like add a simple enter and console.log name. Whenever I save this file, you can able to see restarting due to changes and restarting node index.js. So whenever we are changing something in our file, we no need to stop and start our server. It will be automatically taken care by nodemon, and this is called as hot reload. I will remove this line and then I will open postman. Here we will create a new collection. I am naming it as employee management, employee underscore management. I have created this collection. Here in this, I will create a new request. Here I am making it as create employee and save to employee management. Now this is created as get. We need to make it as post, so I am making it as post, and then the URL is http://localhost 3000/employee. Yep. And now if we execute this code, we can able to see we are getting nothing in the request.body because we are not sending anything in the body. So here we will cancel this and here select raw and select JSON, and then here we will send our request body in JSON structure. Now we have created our JSON request and then I have marked it as raw and as JSON. Now if you send this to our endpoint, now we can able to see we have this request body got printed. Now if you keenly notice here, we are not getting anything as a response. This is because we are not returning any response. So to return a response, we can do it as response.json and then here request.body. Now save this code and execute it again. If you execute it again, we got the request as a response. Now we have seen how the post service really works and how we can be able to send the request, how it gets the request to an endpoint, and then how we are sending the response back to the endpoint. Now we will communicate with the Postgres database. To do it, we need to create query. Constant, I will create a new variable named employee data. This is the response whichever we are receiving from the database, and then here I am marking it as await. So await pool dot this pool whichever we are getting from the DB function has inbuilt function named query, and in this query we are gonna create the insert query. So to create an insert query, we need to follow the Postgres syntax. So the Postgres syntax to insert an entry into the database is insert into table name. Here we need to insert into the table name employee, and then we need to mention the field. So name, comma, date of joining, comma, designation, comma, gender, comma, email, comma, bio. Now we have mentioned all the fields, and here we need to pass the values. We need to make this as dynamic. So how we can make this as dynamic? You can use the dollar followed by the sequence number. Here $1 and $2 and $3 and $4 and $5 and $6. Now we have 6 values. So for this I am creating a new array. Here think of this array which starts from the index position 1. So here in this array you can pass your dynamic values. So here we have destructured this value already from the request body. So I'm just copying this and pasting it here. So what really happens here is, for the value 1, it searches for the index 1. Here, since this array starts from the index 1, so names are the index 1. So it replaces this first index with the name dynamic value. So similarly for date of joining it will replace the second, and for designation it will replace with third, gender it will replace for 4, and email it will replace for 5, and bio it will replace for 6. So by this way you can assign n number of dynamic values inside a query. And then to return from this query we are using this command returning star. Now we have this employee data. So employee data dot rows. Now rows is an array and we are storing only one value. So in return we will get only one value. So I am taking the 0th index value. So now we have created post operation which has the endpoint employee, and here we are destructuring the request which we are getting as a JSON. Here we are creating a query. In the query we are passing these values: name, date of joining, designation, gender, email, bio as a dynamic values. Now we will try to execute the code and we will see what we are getting. And we have already created our request body, so I will try to execute it again. Now if you see, we have successfully created an entry in the employee table. So the ID is the one which is retrieved from the sequence whichever we have created from the employee sequence. Now go to the Postgres and we will save this in script.js. Stop the server. Yes. And touch script .sql. Here we have created a file named script.sql and I have copied and pasted it. Now we will start the server. Node index. Now the server is started. Go to the Postgres. Go to the table employee. I click the employee and here scripts, select script. So now execute the script. We can able to see we have created one entry with the value whichever we send in the request body. Now try to create another post endpoint for team. So this endpoint takes a JSON and this JSON has 3 values: name, email and description, and destructure these values, insert it into the employee table and return the rows as response. To pause the video now, try to do it by yourself. So for this I will copy and paste this endpoint and I will try to do modifications here directly. So I need to change the endpoint from employee team, and then here I need only 3 variables. One is name and email and next one is description. And then here instead of employee data it is team data, and here instead of employee table it is team table, and here we will have only 3 values. So delete this and description, and then here instead of 6 we need to send only 3 values inside the values, and change this bio to description and delete this. Now see the code again. We are destructuring the request which we are getting. So in the request body we will have name, email and description, and then we have created the query. Here we have created insert into the team and we have specified the field name which we need to enter the values, and then here we have created 3 placeholders 1, 2 and 3, and in the array we have given the name, email and description, and then here we have returned the team data that rows and the index value 0. Now go to Postgres and create a new request. This is create team. Save to employee management. Here create team, change it to post, and http localhost 3000 and team. Now go to the body and click raw and change it to JSON, and you need to create a JSON with 3 fields. Now we have created this request body with these 3 fields. Now we will try to execute this code. Send. Now we have created an entry in the database successfully. Now we have returned the ID as 1. Now go to the Postgres. Here public team, and we need to retrieve, and here instead of this make it a star. Now execute this code. We got JavaScript as first path, and then JavaScript developers. And here I have placed the star because I want to retrieve all the fields in this table. So if you want to retrieve all the fields in the table, you can use star. So we have successfully created 2 endpoints, one to create employee and one to create a team. Likewise, you can create another endpoint for team assignment. So I will create it fastly. Since this employee ID and team ID are foreign key, whenever we are trying to create an entry in this employee assignment table, make sure that ID is already present in employee and then team, or else we will get a foreign key constraint error. So we will try to create this endpoint using the postman. So I will try to duplicate this endpoint. So here I will change it as employee assignment, and then copy this context root. Now we have created a request, and we have already created employee ID 1 and the team ID 1. Now we will try to execute, and we got an error. We will try to log this error here. Console.log. I will try to go to the postman, execute this again. Let's see what error we are getting. The employee assignment is not a sequence. Here we have made a mistake, that is, instead of making it as employee assignment underscore sequence, we have gave it as employee assignment. So what I will try to do here is, since we haven't created any entry in this table, I will try to drop this table and save. Drop table employee underscore assignment. Now we have successfully dropped the table employee assignment. Now go to our script.sql. We'll make it as employee assignment sequence. Copy this query and execute it again. Now we have successfully created a table employee assignment, and we have changed the sequence from employee assignment to employee assignment underscore sequence. Try executing the same request again. Now if we execute it again, we can able to see it is successfully processed. Now go to the table. We can able to see a new entry got created, and the primary key is 1 and the employee ID is 1 and the team is 1. That means the user 1 Jairam Chandran is assigned to the team JavaScript. Now we will see how to create the endpoint for reading. First we will create an endpoint to get all the employees. For that I will use app.get employees, and then here I am making it as async function. It takes 2 parameters, one is request and one is resp, and this is an anonymous function. And in this function I will declare a try catch block. I will copy and paste this request status error JSON, and then here I will create a query to retrieve all the employee data from the table. So to do that, constant employee data equal to await pool dot query. Here you don't need to pass any parameters, so just enter the query, select star from the table name employee. Here, as I mentioned before, the star is used to return all the fields. Res.json. Here you need to return all the rows. Employee data dot rows. Now save this, create a new endpoint, add request, which is get all employees. Paste here employees. You don't need to send anybody. In case of get, if you even send body, that will be ignored. So just create send. Now we have only one entry, so we have returned that in the form of array. So this array holds only one value, so it returns array and the entry Jaramchandran. Now we will create similarly for team. Pause the video here and try to create get all teams by yourself. Here it's very simple, just make it as teams, and then instead of employee data, make it as team data, change it to team. Perfect. Create another endpoint, just add request, get all teams, set employee data, get all teams, copy this. Yes. Perfect. Now execute it. Here similarly we got success and we have only one entry in the table team, so we got that entry here. Now we will try to create a get to fetch an individual employee. This is a little tricky because we need to pass this employee ID as part of query params. We will see what is this query params. Instead of employees, I am making it as employee, and here this query param is ID. The URL will be something like this: employee/1. If you put employee/1, it will get the employee 1. So select star from employee where ID equal to $1 is a placeholder, comma, here ID. Now this will fetch as the employee data. Here we are also interested on all the team in which this particular employee is associated with. Then we also need to get the query params. It will be part of request dot params. So similarly we will use ES6 destructuring constant. Here the query param value is ID. Here we will create a new data object and we will assign this employee data here, data equal to employee data. Instead of sending the employee data, we will send the data. Now we are assigning data to an empty object, and once we have retrieved the particular employee detail, we are assigning it to the employee data. We also need to assign the teams in which this employee is associated with. So to do that, const teams. For this we will create a subquery, await pool dot query select star from team, because you need to get all the associated team details, where ID in. The keyword in is used to get the data from more than one ID. So here you can pass something like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you pass like this, you will get all the team details where the ID matches 1, 2, 1, 3 and 4. So here instead of 1, 2, 3 and 4, I will write another subquery here. Select team ID. Here I need to mention the field name. I should not put star because I need to get only the team ID here. So team underscore ID from table name is employee assignment, where employee underscore ID equal to $1. Here we have this ID. This is the ID which we are getting in the query param. Now we'll go through this query once again. We are selecting all the team details. Here in this subquery, I am getting all the team IDs in which this employee is associated with. Now we will check if the data is valid. Then data.teams equal to teams.rows. Else data equal to info no employee data found for this ID. Duplicate this, get all employees. Here one. Send this. Here we got everything. Employee data dot rows 0. Now execute it again. Now this is perfect. We have the employee ID 1 and we got the employee details and we have a teams array. Here in this teams array we will get all the teams in which the employee is associated with. Like this, try creating something for team. So here whenever we are using team, you need to get the team details and you need to get all the associated employee for that particular team. Pause this video here and try to do it by yourself. And instead of employee, I am making it as team. Here I am making it as team. And here I am making it as employee, because we need to get from employee instead of employee ID, it should be team ID. So here instead of teams, this is employees. Copy and paste this. So instead of employee data, it is team data. Now we will try to execute the same again. So duplicate this, copy this. So here it should not be teams, it should be employees. If you execute it again, the team details and all the employees who are associated with this particular team. Now try executing this for ID which is not present. If you execute this, you got something like no team data. Here execute this, no team data found for this ID. Now we have created 7 endpoints, 4 for get and 3 for creation. Now we will try to create something for updation. So for update I will use the put operation. App.put. Here the endpoint is same like how we have used in the get. So it is something like employee and the query param we have ID here and async, and it takes 2 parameters, one is request and response, and this is a anonymous function. And then here we will create try and catch. We have error here, and then here just try copying this address or status. We need to take the query params, so I will destructure const id equal to request dot params. Right. Now we have destructured the id from the request parameters, and then we also need to destructure request body. So for this I will take this line, so I will copy this, paste it here. Now constant employee data, this is employee data, equal to pool dot query. Here the script is update employee set name equal to value. So here I am giving the placeholder and comma date of joining equal to the placeholder 2 comma designation equal to $3, gender equal to placeholder $4, and then email $5, and then bio equal to $6. Now we need to mention the where. So because we need to get the employee by the ID, so where ID equal to $7. Now we need to pass this into this array. We'll copy all this and paste it here, and in addition to that we need to also pass ID. So ID is in the 7th position, so I am pasting it at the last. and we need to return this in response. Response.json employee data dot rows. Here we will make it as await rows 0, and we also need to return this values from this query, so I am using this as returning star returns all the data, so returning star. Perfect. Now I will create a duplicate of create employee, create duplicate. So create employee, body I have, so employee here, ID is 1, and here update employee. Software engineer, I'm making it a software developer, so I'm making this also as software developer. Now execute this query. Here we got error because we are trying to send it as post. This is not post, this is put operation. Change it as put and execute it again. Now if you execute it again, we got this software engineer changed to software developer, and here also the software engineer changed to software developer. We will see whether this got reflected in the database. Employee, execute it again. It is changed from software engineer to software developer. Try pausing this video here and try creating the update team by yourself. Copy and paste it here. Make it as team. Deleting everything. Description, and copy this. Paste it here, and this is team data. Update. Set name. Name is perfect. Date of joining is perfect. Email is perfect. So I'm deleting this. Description 3, and this is 4. This is 2. Now we have done all the modifications. Now go to the postman, and here duplicate this create team, duplicate this. Here change this to update team is here, make it as 1, and change from post to put, and in the body change JavaScript to JS at wispath.com. Send. Yeah, we got this change. Now go to the database, see whether it is working fine. Now we have created endpoints for create, read and update. Now last we need to create endpoints for deletion. So we will create 4 endpoints for deletion. First we will create for deleting the employee. app.delete employee /id. Come on, async takes 2 parameters. One is request and another one is response. Then this is anonymous function, and then here try catch. Copy this response here. We need to destructure the ID from the request param, and here we need to delete the employee. So if you try to delete the employee without deleting it in the employee assignment, you will get a foreign key constraint violation. So you need to check if there is any entry for this particular employee in the employee assignment table. That means if this employee is assigned to any team, we need to make sure you are deleting that assignment before deleting the employee. First I will delete from the team member data. So I am creating a data object here. Constant employee assignment data equal to await pool dot query. So here you need to write our delete script. So delete from employee assignment where employee underscore id equal to $1 returning start. So here we need to pass the id. Perfect. Here we have written the script to delete the employee details from the employee assignment table. Now we need to delete the employee from the employee table. So employee data equal to await pool dot query delete from employee where id equal to $1 returning star. Here you need to pass the id in the array, and here data I am assigning it to employee data dot rows 0, and we will check whether this data is valid. Data, then data dot teams equal to employee assignment data dot rows, else data equal to info employee delete. Now response dot json equal to data. Now go to the postman. So here I will use this get employee, so duplicate this one here, http localhost employee, and then here one. So here this is delete I save. Yep, we have deleted this entry. So here we have deleted the id 1 which belongs to J. Ramchandran, and then we have also deleted his team's assignment. So if we try to execute it again, we will see this info that no employee to delete because this employee is already deleted. So similarly we will try to perform the same operation for team. So try pausing this video here and try to create by yourself. Team, here is the employee assignment data, this is perfect. Team underscore id returning star, perfect. And here team data employee assignment dot rows, here this is employees, no team to delete. Now we have everything. So here we have this as team data, so team data dot rows, so delete from team where, perfect. Now duplicate this. And delete team, perfect. Here instead of employee it should be team. Now execute this. So already we have deleted the assignment. Once we run the employee delete, already the assignment got deleted. So we should have the employees as empty array, and then team data is deleted. Now if we try to execute it again, no team data to delete. Now we will verify this with get all employees. You see get all employees, it is null, and get all teams, this is also empty array. Perfect. I will create some employee. So id we have created 2, and create team, this is 2, and create employee assignment. So I need to make it as true. If we try to execute it, we will get error because the keyword 1 is not present in the main table. So 2, this will create id 3. Now we'll go ahead and create that endpoint to delete the employee assignment. So here the endpoint is employee assign, and here we need to have 2 query params. One is employee id, employee underscore id, and the next one is team underscore id. Here the employee id, and then we need to destructure the team id. And you don't need this, delete, and no need the data, delete, no need this as well, delete this. Team id and employee underscore id equal to, here the sequence is not matching, so I'm deleting this team and I am placing it here, perfect. now the sequence is matching. So here we are deleting delete from employee assignment where the team ID is 1 and the employee ID is 2 and team ID and employee ID. Here we have destructured the employee ID and team ID from the request parameters, and here instead of data it must be something like employee assignment dot rows 0. Duplicate this, and here employee assign 2 and 2, and here the employee assignment. Now if you execute this, you see this entry got deleted. Now if you execute it again, you don't see any response because this is already deleted. Now we have created all the endpoints. We will do some refactoring. Now this code looks very clumsy, and this is not good practice to have 176 lines in a single code. And if you need to do a lot of code change and logic change, this eventually will become very big. We'll stop the server. Yes, and I will try to create 4 different files. So one is touch create.js, touch create.js, touch update.js, and touch delete.js. So I have created 4 files. Now I will try to place these operations in this corresponding files. Cut this one. I will make it as create employee. So I'll go to create and exports dot create employee equal to async. Now here we don't need this dependency pool here, so cut it. We have placed this pool here, and then we have created create employee const equal to record create. Cut this, create t. We will create another method, export dot create equal to this, and we will export this. I will cut this, create employee assignment. We will try to do the same for get as well. Control-X, get all employees to read.js, exports dot, cut this, exports, go to create, copy this pool, cut this, get employee, exports dot get employee, exports dot get t, copy this, instead of create, make it as read, and delete, control space, get all employees, comma, get all teams, comma, get employee, comma, get team. Perfect. Update.js, exports dot update employee. Perfect. Here we have the update employee. Here, copy this again, update, delete everything. Here, insert this one, then delete this also. Update t, go to update.js and create exports dot update t equal to. Go to read.js and get the pool record DB and then paste it here and then here. Copy this and paste it here again. Put update instead of read and then delete all the modules here. Update employee, comma, update team. Now we have delete, so I will cut this one, which is delete employee. So go to the delete.js, exports dot delete employee equal exports dot delete team equal to and go to update, paste it here, go to the index.js, cut this employee assignment, exports dot delete employee assignment equal to perfect. Now copy this one, paste it here. Now copy this again and change this update to delete. Now we have completely restructured all our endpoints. Now if you see this file, this looks good. We have only 31 lines of code. Now we have uniformly distributed it to various files and we have logically separated also. For example, if you want to see all the create operation, go to create.js, and if you want to see all our delete operation, go to delete.js, likewise for update and read. So this looks modular and easy to maintain as well. Restarting this application again. Get all employees working fine and get employee is working fine and get team is working fine. Now everything looks fine. Now we will see about the final part, which is CORS. The CORS is cross-origin resource sharing. Cross-origin resource sharing is very important when you are creating endpoints in a different domain or different host, and if you are creating your UI in a different domain. Let's take this example. Let's take we have deployed a REST service in withpath.com. So here withpath.com is the domain, and here if you try to access that withpath.com from involvedinnovation.com, which is another domain, and if you don't have cross-origin resource sharing enabled, and if you are trying to access this REST service from a different domain rather than withpath.com, then you can't access that. Let's take a different example. If you have enabled the cross-origin resource sharing and if you have deployed your REST service in withpath.com and you have two requests coming, one from involvedinnovation.com, another from example.com, here in this case you can able to access from all the domains, and then here you can also enable cross-origin resource sharing for only particular domains and you can ignore for another domains. Here in this case you have this cross-origin resource sharing enabled only for involved innovation and you haven't enabled this for example.com. Now we will try to see all these examples and how to achieve in the service whichever we have created. So already we have imported the CORS in the package.js. You have already installed this CORS and you have marked this as our dependency. Now go to the index.js. Now you need to import that CORS. So const CORS equal to record CORS. Now we have the CORS imported, or you need to use that in your app. So app.use equal to CORS. This is similar to this diagram whichever we seen here. Now we have enabled to all the domains. Irrespective of any domain it will work. You will see another example. Here we will define very particularly from which domain it should work and from which domain it should not work. So for that I will create CORS options. So options equal to, I will mention the origin here. So the origin is origin equal to option success status mistake 200. Now we have created CORS options And then here in the CORS we can pass this CORS options. This service will work on the local host and then it will work from example.com. It won't work for any other domain. And also we can mention this for particular operation. For example, if you want to enable this only for get, so you can do like this. Paste it here. This CORS will work only for this get all employees. It won't work for any other operations. And these are the various options with CORS. Now we will see how to do Swagger documentation. The Swagger documentation is very important in an enterprise level application because that provides a way to test and then that provides a cool nice way to document your service as well. That provides a documentation for your consumer to know what is the request they need to send and what the response they will be getting from each and every operation. Here the Swagger UI will look something like this. Now we will create the Swagger documentation. So to create Swagger documentation, we need to have two dependencies in our project. One is Swagger docs and another one is Swagger UI. We will install these dependencies npm install. So shortcut is I Swagger -dos here Swagger JS doc Swagger -UI -express -s. This -s will save this dependency to our package.json. Now I will execute this query in the index.js. Create two constant. Here constant Swagger JS doc equal to require Swagger JS doc and then constant Swagger UI equal to require Swagger UI express. Now we have defined our dependencies and we have imported our dependencies into our project. Now we need to define our Swagger options. So for that I will create a JSON file constant Swagger options definition equal to, here I am using OpenAI standards 3.0.0, so I am mentioning it as Open API colon 3.0.0 and then here I am defining some metadata for the Swagger info. So info equal to title. The title I am mentioning it as Employee Management API. This version as 1.0.0. These are some of the metadata relating to our service. So description Employee API for Employee Management and then contact information. Here developing test team, you can give your team details. The servers. So here I am mentioning the servers as so here this is array, you can mention a number of servers. So now we need to define the APIs. So the APIs is the one where this Swagger should search for our documentation. Here I have placed everything in index.js. You can also specify some wildcards. So I will try to do how to specify the wildcards here. So if you want to search all the JS files in your root directory, you can put something of this sort. So if you put something of this sort, all the JS files present in this root directory will be searched for the APIs and then those documentation will be added to the Swagger UI. All of my documentation will present in index.js, so I am mentioning it as index.js. Now I have created Swagger options. Now we can create Swagger docs. Swagger docs equal to Swagger JS doc. Here I need to pass the Swagger options whichever I have created. Here I need to use app.use because here I need to create the endpoint so in which we can able to see the Swagger UI. So -API docs, you can create any endpoint as you wish. I personally prefer this endpoint to store all our API docs, so I am giving it as API-docs. And then here Swagger UI dot serve comma Swagger UI dot setup Swagger docs. Here I need to pass Swagger docs, which I have created line number 28. Yep. Now this is fine. Now we have created our base structure to get the Swagger docs and then to create the Swagger UI based on the Swagger docs. Now we will try defining our parameters in this API. So what I will try to do here is, before creating our documentation, I will try to go ahead and create some definitions. So definitions are the schema definition. So here we have two main schemas. One is employee schema and another one is team schema. So here we will try to define those schemas with the Swagger definitions. So I need to create multi-line comment and we need to create Swagger, and then here we need to put definitions, and this is YML based, so you need to make sure your indentations are perfect. If your indentations are not perfect, it won't work. So here I have giving one space. I need to define this inside the employee, so I am giving two space here. So type is object because this employee is of type object, and then this is properties. It has 6 properties. First one is name. Watch out the indentation. Here I am placing this name inside the properties. I am mentioning it as type string, and description is name of the employee. This is not needed, but this will provide a way for your consumer to understand what this field is, and then you can also give an example for them to execute and see what really happens. Now we have created a property name. Now we will create another property name date of joining. Copy this name property, paste it here, and here instead of name I will change it to date of joining, string, and date of joining 2020-08-30, and then I will paste it again, and this is email, and this is email of the employee jairamchandran@wizpath.com. Another property, this property is gender of the employee, this is male, and bio, so the bio is string, and then biography of the employee, father, and software developer, and designation string, and designation of the employee. For the employee, here I am making it as software engineer. So here we have defined the employee definition. Likewise, now we will define another definition, which is a team definition. We will change it to team, and then here name of the team. Here I am making it as JavaScript, and then no need date of joining, email of the team, Java description of the team, and then here this is JavaScript developers. Now we have defined our definitions, and in this definition we have two definitions. One is employee, another one is team, and we will create another one definition. So this is, so here I will define this as integer, and this property name is employee underscore id, employee underscore assignment, team underscore id. This is also of type integer, id of the team, and then this is 2. Now we have successfully created 3 definitions: employee, employee assignment, and team. Now we'll go ahead and create. First we will try to create the definition for our create employee, and Swagger employee, and here this is post method, so I am just defining it as post, and then here summary is like create employee, or summary or description, whatever it is. You can even have summary and description also. Description create employee for the organization. Okay. Try to give a space here and then define the request body. So the request body also should have the same indentation like a description. So request body b caps, and inside request body you need to mention the content, application JSON, application/JSON. You need to mention the schema. So here in the schema we can refer the definition whichever we have already created. So to refer the definition, $ref : define your definition whichever we have already created. So definition employee, and then you need to have the same number of space like request body 1 2 3 responses : so first we will define 200. So if the get 200, the description is successful employee created successfully. 500, then the description is failure in creating employee. Now we'll try to start our application. Node1 index, application started, but we got some error, it is crashed. So we'll see what is the problem. Properties, bad indentation mapping, properties. So here we have bad indentation and space, 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 space. Perfect. I believe now we have given space for all the type. Now try restarting it again. Control C, Y. And now there is no error. Now open your browser and here localhost 3000 API docs. We have successfully created a post. There is some problem with our request body. We'll see what is the problem. And then here we have created two responses, one for 200, one for 500. One is employee created successfully, one is failure in creating employees. Here we have missed the slash. Now refresh the web page, and now we can able to see we have created the Swagger endpoint for post employee. Now we have this request body. Now we can try it out. Click try it out. If we execute it, now this will be given as the request, and we can able to see the response. The response body is we got the ID 3 created, and we got the response code as 200. I have created the Swagger docs for team. Just I will copy and paste. So here I have mentioned the context root as team, and this is post, so I mentioned it as post, and summary is create team. It takes parameter which is body. So in this body I have already defined the schema team, so I have mentioned the schema team here, and in the request body I have given the team, and in the response I have mentioned 200. Here we can even have 500, and description is error. And now we have created the Swagger endpoint for team as well. Now refresh this page. We can able to see we have created for team and we have created for employee. And here in the parameters we can able to see we are having the body as a parameter. So you can try it out. So here if you try to execute it again, we got a success response and the new ID is created of ID 5, and then we can able to see the code as 200. By this way you can able to even create for another post operation which is employee assignment. So for this also I have created before. So here I will just copy and paste this. You can find all this in the GitHub repo which I have mentioned in the description. So here I have mentioned that's employee assignment, and it's a post operation. I have given the summary as create employee assignment, and here in the parameters, I have mentioned the body and I have mentioned the schema here, which I have created at the starting. In the request body, I have mentioned the employee assignment. It can have two response. One is 200 in case of success and 500 in case of any error. The employee ID as 2. Here we can edit this request body. So if you go to try it out, so here we can edit the request body. Here I am editing the employee ID as 4 instead of 2. I'm executing it again. I got 500 error because the employee ID 4 is not present in the table. Making it as 3. We got the success response because there is an ID of 3 and a new employee assignment got created which is of ID 6. So by this way we can able to test the operations whichever we have created using Swagger UI. Now we have created Swagger UI for all the post operation which we have done. Now we will see how to do the same for get operation. Employees. So here I mentioned the context root as employees and then get and the summary. This operation is used to get all the employees and description is same and there is no request body and there is no parameter. Here there can be two response. One is 200 in case of success and if there is any error we will get 500. So I will just add 500 here. Refreshing this page, I can able to see get with a different color. So here this is get operation. So if I try to execute this, I got a success response with all the employees. So here we have two employees with the same name but with the different IDs. Both the employees returned. So similarly we will try to create for teams as well. So it should be pretty straightforward. So here I have already done for team as well. I will try to copy and paste this here. So here the context root is teams and this is a get operation and the summary is get all teams. The description is get all teams. Here in the response it can be 200. This is for teams. I will also copy and paste to get the individual employee. Here it is little tricky because here we need to pass the request param because this context path takes ID as a request param. So here we will see how to do that. So copy and paste. The context root is employee ID and also it has, and this is get operation. The summary is get as individual employee and description is same. And in parameters I have mentioning the path. That is, this is a path variable, so it should be path. But here, if you see, I have mentioned it as body. Since this is the request param, I am mentioning in as path and the name as employee ID. Here it should match whatever we have given in the context root. So it is matching the employee ID here. And the schema is integer and this is record and the description is ID of the employee. And we also gave the example too. We can edit this in Swagger UI. So similarly, I will try to give team as well. So this is to return the individual team. So here similarly in the context root, I have covered this team underscore ID with flower brace. This team underscore ID is the request param and the summary is create team and the description is create team. And the parameters I have mentioned this in input as path variable. And then here I have mentioned that name as team ID. It is of the type integer and then it is record and the description is this is ID of the team. And here we are mentioning the example as 2. Now we'll save this and then we will try to see what we are getting in the Swagger UI. Now refresh this page. We got 3 post and 4 get operation. So here we will test what is happening in teams. Now we'll try to execute this. We got all the teams as a list. Now we'll go and execute the get individual employee. Now if you see we can able to edit this. So here instead of 2 I'll edit this as 3 and I click execute. If I execute this I got the response body as ID 3 and J Ramachandran. So here this is fine and then similarly in team I will go and try it out. Execute this. So here I got 2. So this looks perfectly fine. Now we have created the Swagger UI for post and get operation. So here now we will see about the put. here I have mentioned the context root as employee and ID. Here ID is the request param, so I am covering it with flower brace. This is a put method, so I make it as put, and then the summary is update employee, and it consumes application JSON and it produces application JSON. And the parameters is, first I will go with the request param, so I mentioned it as path, and the name is ID, and the schema is integer type, and this is record, so I mentioned it as true, and then description ID of the employee. Here this also requires a body, so I have mentioned the input requires as body type, and then this is body and record true, and this is body object. Here I have previously created the schema for employee, so I am just mentioning it here, and then in the request body I have once again mentioning the schema, the employee schema, and then the content as application JSON. Here I have mentioned the response. In the response I have also mentioned the schema team. This is how we'll get the response from employee put operation. Now we will also copy and paste the team. I think by now it is very straightforward, but once again I will say this just to make sure you are understanding it better. Here I have given the context root, and I have mentioned the ID inside the flower brace because this is a request parameter, and I have mentioned this as put operation, and the summary is update team, and it consumes application JSON and produces application JSON, and it takes two parameters. One is request parameter, which is path variable. Here I mentioned it as ID. It is matching with the variable which I gave in the context path, and then I mentioned this as record, and then in the body I have mentioned input as body and the name as body, and then I have given it as body object in the description, and I have mentioned the schema as team, which I have created before, and then here I have created the request body, and in the schema I mentioned the team as a schema, and the response I have given 200, and then here I have referred the team schema, and the content is application JSON, and this description is success. Now we will go and see how we are seeing this in Swagger UI. Now refresh this page. Now there is two more operations got created in Swagger UI. One is put employee. This is to update the employee. So here the request param is 2, and then it has a body object. Now we will try to edit this. So instead of software engineer, I'm making it as software developer, and I try to execute this. I got success response, and the designation is updated to software developer. Similarly, there is team. Here I have two params, one is ID and one is body. So I will try it out, and here instead of JavaScript developers, I am mentioning it as JS developers. I got a success response with the description as JS developers. Now we have created the Swagger UI for post, get and put. We have only delete remaining, so I will just copy the delete employee whichever I have created. So first I am mentioning the context path. So the context path is employee, and it takes request param employee ID, and the method is delete. In the summary I mentioned it as delete employee, and then it takes one input variable which is path variable, and here I given it as employee ID. It is matching with the variable present in the context path, and then I mentioned the schema type as integer, and then here this is the ID of the employee, and I also gave the example as 12. So I will change it to 2. I will change it to 2, and then response 200, and the description is success. I will also copy and paste delete team. So this looks also same. Here I have mentioned the team ID in the request param. Here in the parameter I have mentioned the team ID, and the schema type is integer, and the response 200 is success. And I will also create one more, which is delete employee assignment. So here it takes two input param. One is employee ID and another one is team ID. Here in the parameters I am giving two path variables, one is employee ID and one is team ID, and the response is 200. Swagger UI. Refresh the page. So here, so it created 3 delete operations. One is to delete employee, one is to delete the team, and one is to delete employee assignment. Here to delete employee, just giving try it out and executing it. I got success response because it successfully deleted the employee. If I try to execute it again, I will get 200, no employee to delete. That's perfect. Now here I am going to team and I am trying to delete 2. So here I am deleting the team 2 and it successfully deleted the team 2. Now if I try to execute it again, I got no team 2 delete. Now I will delete the employee assignment. Now try it out, execute, and the response is null because we don't have anything to delete. So this is how we have created the Swagger UI for all the 4 methods and for all the operations whichever we created for this employee project. Thanks for watching this video. For more videos like this, subscribe to this channel. Let me know if you have any queries. In the part 2, we will see how to consume this in a client from React application. Thanks for watching.